Hi, everyone can see my screen. And hi, I'm Bishal. I'm from Aalto University, and I'm a PhD student here. And I'll be presenting my work on implementation of multi-level control to the adaptive mesh refinement in OpenFOAM 12. First, about the content of the presentation, I will first start with why we need AMR and why we need a multi-level refinement. And I will be providing some background to AMR and refinement in OpenFOAM 12 and how to use AMR in OpenFOAM 12 with the help of a tutorial and how is it implemented in OpenFOAM 12 and what modification that I have made so that we can have multi-level. What is multi-level? I will get to it in a minute. And also I will be explaining it with the help of a tutorial. So first, why do we need our AMR? So basically, a finer mesh in CFD gives you accurate solutions given all the models are implemented correctly. So finer the mesh, more accurate the solution is going to be. However, we all face the same problems of accuracy versus the computational cost. And some of the utilities available in OpenFOAM 12 are Snappy Hex Mesh, Block Mesh, Refined Mesh, and Refined Hex Mesh for refinement. AMR, what it does is it only refines the mesh of area of interest on the right-hand side figure, which is a figure of my project. It's a spray combustion of methanol. So you can see that the refinement is being done only on the spray regions and not entirely on the spray domain itself. So this strategy has a tendency to reduce cell size and also save computational cost. Now, some background on the types of refinement. Basically, we have in OpenFOAM, we have two basic types of refinement. We call it H refinement and R refinement. So here on the right-hand side, we have an original mesh. On the H refinement, we tend to split the cells, so which means that we add nodes and split the faces of a parent cell and turn it into smaller cells. So that we call H refinement. And another type of refinement, we call it the R refinement, where we move the nodes around so that we get finer cells in the area of interest. So in block mesh, if you have used that if you remember a tutorial of a flat face, we tend to have finer refinement on the boundaries. So with the block mesh, we can achieve this R refinement. However, we will be focusing on adaptive mesh refinement, which adopts the H refinement strategy. And more info on AMR is that AMR in OpenFOAM is limited to three-dimensional setup, which means that normally when we use two-dimensional setup, we tend to have two faces of type empty. So in that way, we can achieve two-dimensional setup. But unfortunately, AMR in OpenFOAM does not allow that. So we will need to have three-dimensional. Another thing to remember is the term cell level, which is frequently used in AMR. So for example, in original mesh, you see I have typed 0 here, so which it's a base mesh, so it has a cell level of 0. And if it's refined once, so it will have cell level 1. If it's refined twice, it will have cell level 2. Yeah, so that's one thing to remember. About the folder structure that I have, so I have two tutorials. One is bubble rise. So I think we all are familiar with bubble rise. And also familiar with flow over a cylinder. And it has case files, all run, all clean scripts, and simulations of folder. These double asterisks, I have said the folder is only generated after we run the all run script. And also I have here the implementation. I call it FEMesh topo changers. refiner, multi-level refiner. Sorry, there is a small typo here. I made a mistake. It should be multi-level refiner. I will change it. And here I have two files, the .h file and .c file. And here I have the make file as well. And another, I should say that the all run and all clean, all run script will automatically compile the library. How to use an AMR. So I think this should be a video. I'm sorry, it should have been a video. I will just. So here we have a bubble rise. You can see that uh, the the surface of a bubble is being refined, and yeah, this is done with AMR. So we run the all run script provided in bubble rise AMR folder, and we will look into the simulations and bubble case original. So here we have a mesh of 40 by 80 time by 2 cells. As I said before, AMR does not allow two-dimensional setup. So here I have a pseudo 2D case, so which means that the u velocity is slip in z direction and pressure is set to 0 gradient. Similarly, other factors are also set in a way that it does not hamper in that direction, so it does not change in z direction very much. So here we see a dynamic mesh dict in the tutorial. So dynamic mesh dict is essential to set up an AMR, and here is an example of the dynamic mesh dict. And each parameters I will be explaining it in the next slide. Here we see a dynamic mesh dict and all the entries. So here we have the type and libs. So we have to set type to refiner and libs to FEMesh topo changers. Here we have refine interval. So it specifies how often to refine, the time interval according to which this AMR will take place. We have the field, which sets the scalar field. We have lower and upper refine level. So it will set the limit of, so between these values, the AMR refinement will take place. And unrefined level, it means that below this level, the cell will be unrefined. So these three values are very essential, and there is no rule on which values to use. So we have to have a bit of a trial and error to see which works the best. And buffer layers, which have additional buffer layers to the refined cells. We have max refinement, which is the cell level that we want after the refinement. So how much to refine, basically. And we have max cells, so which is maximum number of cells allowed. And we have dump level. It means if it's set to true, like in this case, we will have cell level as a post-processing, so it will write cell level in the simulation time folders, so which can be used to view, which can be viewed which can be viewed in the paraview. And we have correct fluxes, so which recalculates the fluxes. Here we see we have written phi and none. So the first entry is the flux name. So basically is surface scalar fields, and the next is none, which is the velocity. So if we have velocity, if we want to recalculate, we can type here u instead of none. U means the velocity. Yeah. And another strategy to have is to use AMR in different regions. Here I have defined lower regions and upper regions. So we have different regions on which AMR will take place. This I have named multi-region strategies. And on the right-hand side, we have multi-field. So we have same region, so both has lower regions, but you see the field is different. So in the upper, we have alpha dot water, which is the volume fraction of the water. and field is temperature. This is just an arbitrary case, so just to show how it works. But we will be focusing on multi-region strategies. One thing to also notice is the different max refinements. So in the lower regions, I have set the max refinement to 2, and in the upper regions, I have set a max refinement of 1. Now, one would expect that in the lower regions, the refinement will take twice, and in the upper region, the refinement will take only once. But let's see how that happens, how it turns out. So as we can see, we have the lower regions and upper regions here in the bubble case. In the lower regions, we have set the refinement of level of 2, and in the upper regions, we have set the refinement level of 1. So, but in the actual simulations, which can be viewed here, this is the folder, which can be seen here, we can see that in the upper regions, the refinement level also takes twice. So it disregards our dictionary. So this is what we'll be implementing in this project. And why do we need a multi-level? So this is a case of my project. It's a different of my PhD, sorry. It's a methanol spray combustion. So here we have 2 different regions. One regions where all the spray evaporation in initial ignition would take place, and other region where the flame would propagate. In the regions where we have evaporations and initial ignition, we would want finer mesh, and once flame is fully developed and propagates, finer mesh is not necessarily required. In the finer mesh here, I mean 62.5 micrometers, and not requiring fine mesh, we can go up about 125 micrometers or even 250 micrometers. Here, the refinement has been done with 3 values. Before I showed 2 values, but here I have 3 values: methanol mass fraction, temperature, and magnitude of gradient of temperature. So this is why we need multi-level. As you can see that the multi-level, it does not have, we cannot define 2 levels of refinement. So how it is implemented in OpenFOAM 12. So we can see the library in FE Mesh Topo Changers Refiner. We can find it in source in this folder. And yeah, how it is called through FE Mesh class. So FE Mesh is basically the mesh class. It calls a function called update. It calls the function called update, which calls the FE Mesh Topo Changer, which is an abstract class for the AMR. And the implementation is done within this FE Mesh Topo Changers Refiner. Now, how it is, this is just a very simple flow chart. The code is a bit complicated, and I made it as simple as possible. So how it goes, it looks into whether there is refined region dict. So refined region dict would be whether this dictionary has been defined or no. And it will look at the maximum cell refinement. I would come that in the next couple of slides. So the first thing would be to select the cells for refinement. And then it would add buffer layers, and it would calculate maximum allowable cells, and it would refine. So basically 4 steps to remember is to select the cells for refinement. It is done with upper and lower refinement level that I've shown in previous slides, and it would add buffer layers to it, and it would calculate if it is under the maximum allowable cells, and then next it would start refining. So these are the 4 very steps in a simple manner. Now coming to the how it is defined. So select cells is done with select refined candidates function. So these are the member functions within the class, and it selects the cells according to the upper and lower refinement level, And buffer layers is done with extend marked cells. It's a name of a member function. And refine is done with refine function, and unrefined is done with the unrefined function. Now we will look at four of these functions individually. So here we have refined cell candidates. So basically it will look whether the uh, whether the cell value is within the upper and lower upper and lower cell, sorry, this upper and lower refinement level is whether if it's between these two values. And it would calculate something called an error. Here FLD stands for the cell value. If it's between these values, it will basically select the cell for refinement. And we have next something called extend mark cells. So this is used for adding buffer layers. So how it is done is that if the cell is marked for refinement from select cell candidates, if the cell is marked for refinement, it would check what are the common faces to the neighboring cells. So it would also mark its neighboring cells through common face. So if it other cells has common face, it would also mark that uh, cells as a mark for refinement. Now coming through with refined function is much bigger than this. It has the set refinement, but I have made it very simple as possible. It uses hexref8 class, which is mostly used for mesh cutting, and here we have mesh cutter. It is a name. It's an object of class hexref8. And this hexref8 is responsible for actually splitting the cells. It would add nodes, it would split the faces, and it is done in hexref8 class. And in this refine member function, the fluxes are also recalculated. Same with unrefined member functions. AMR will record all the histories of the parent and child cells, and it would also unrefine it accordingly. And here the fluxes are calculated. And another thing to is something called protected cells. So basically, this protected cells would, if a cell is protected, it would not be unrefined. So basically, it will not unrefine a pre-refined mesh. So basically, if a mesh has been pre-refined with snappy hex mesh particularly, it will not unrefine the pre-refined mesh. That's what protect cells does. Now coming to the limitation of the implementation, I have shown here, you see the implementation that we in this region, it would take only the maximum of the dictionary. So if we have different refinement level in multiple dictionary, it will only take their maximum value. So this is what the implementation, the limitation in the code is. Now I have implemented FEMesh topo changes multi-level refiner. So basically, what it does, it goes through individual dictionary. So it goes through one dictionary, it will look for the refinement level, it will refine it and go to another dictionary and refine it again, and it go through and so on. So it will loop through whole dictionary. You might, at first glance, you might think that this can be inefficient, and I will come to it in a next slide. Sorry, this should be a video. I'm not sure if it's playing, but I will just. So as you can see here, what changes is required is only two compared to the multi-region case that I showed earlier. So we need to change the type to multi-level refiner, and we need to change the libs to a library to lib multi-level FEMesh topo changers. So if these two things are changed and other remains the same, we will get this. We'll have two different levels of refinement. You see in the lower regions we have we have refined it twice, and in the upper region, we have only refined it once. Now, coming to the second tutorial of the case, we have a flow over a cylinder. Here, the case is slightly more complicated. We have two different regions. I have named it upstream and downstream. It's a flow over a cylinder. Here is the cylinder, and here it is a no-slip wall, and I have a temperature of the wall. So I have set the temperature of this cylinder to 350 Kelvin. Additionally, I also have a passive scalar inlet. So I have a passive scalar named S. It's just an arbitrary name. It would be injected here. And the refinement will be in both, according to both temperature and the passive scalar. So not only we have two different regions and two different values, we will also have two different refinement level. And here the domain is 2310 and by 2 cells. And there is a simple way and an efficient way to define the dynamic mesh dict. So as said earlier, I have two different regions, upstream region and a downstream region. And here I have two different fields, S, a passive scalar, and a temperature. And I also have two different refinement levels. In the upstream region, I have refinement level of 3, and in the downstream, I have refinement level of 2. So let's see how it works. So you see here in the upstream, we are achieving refinement level, finer refinement, and in the downstream, we are not, the refinement level is one step lower. And if we also see, and it is refining according to both temperature here and in the passive scalar here, you can see. And yeah, moving forward, and we can see that it would go through all of these 4 dictionary, so it will actually execute this code 4 times. So it is a simple way, but as you can see, it has some inefficiencies. And I will next show how to efficiently tackle this problem. So here in the tutorial flow over cylinder simulations and efficient way, we would tackle this by creating a new field called refinement variable. It can be any name. Here I have chosen refinement variable. And what it would be is that we would pre-calculate whether the cell is eligible for refinement or no. So we would give here some conditions, and here comes the flexibility that we can have any sort of conditional values. We can have and or any level of conditionals here. And we would say if the cells is between, for this case, if the cells meets the requirement, the refinement level would be refinement variable will be set to 1. Otherwise, refinement variable will be set to 0. And what this code does is it would store the refinement variable in the object registry. And from there, we can use read and write function objects to write it in the time folders as well. And later on, that can be used in the dynamic mesh dict for refinement. So after you creating the refinement variable, we can only create 2 dictionary. One dictionary for upstream region and one dictionary for downstream region, and we can have 2 different refinement levels, as you can see here, and it will give you exactly the same results that I showed earlier. But now the code is only being executed twice. In this way, we can get efficiencies. If we at the end of the tutorial, I found about speed up of about 20 to 25%. So, yeah. So conclusions, the current AMR, I've shown how current AMR is implemented, and I've shown how to use an AMR with the tutorial case, and I've also implemented multi-level refinement strategies that supports multiple regions and fields. And two tutorials. I've shown also tutorials to demonstrate how to efficiently use the proposed implementation. Also, I have to admit that this is not perfect, but there are some improvements that can be made. For example, the implementation in the function object can be implemented in the class itself, but unfortunately, it proved a bit complicated than I thought. So, but that can be a way future development. Thank you.